Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is dr.J and today I would like to show you the most popular category for speedrunning Hollow Knight. Any percent, no major glitches. More precisely, this will be a current patch run. The fastest patch to speedrun Hollow Knight is 1.2.2.1 due to a skip you can perform on this particular version. I am not using that version though. This speedrun has been performed on 1.5.75. I am not attempting to set any records in this run and I am not using any difficult strategies or speed tech. If you've completed the game already, you can do the same things I'm doing in the video. I just want to show you what you can do with a couple of days of practice and hopefully get you interested in speedrunning Hollow Knight. With all the explanation out of the way, let's not waste any more time and dive right in. Okay guys, let's get started. First, we will be skipping the intro FMVs and the timer will start when we begin falling into Hollow Nest. The first couple of screens are all about movement optimization. We will break the doors by slashing upwards in order to conserve our forward momentum and not get pushed back. Then just jump over the crawlets and move on. A minor strat is to use the second pillar and pogo jump on it in order to reach the higher ground. That way you could save a few frames by not doing an actual jump. Just in case it was not obvious, I did not do it correctly. Moving on, we are still mostly ignoring the enemies. However, it's a good idea to slash them on your way in order to build up some soul. We won't be getting the Fury of the Fallen charm. In fact, the only charm we are going to get in this speedrun is the Shaman stone. You can just normally slash at this gate since you won't be losing any time from the pushback. Personally, I prefer constantly jumping at this stage of the speedrun in order to keep my hands warm. We'll be replacing this with the constant dashing once we get the clock. Unfortunately, since this is a speedrun, we will have to be rather rude and ignore Elderbug and keep going towards the well. Our first goal is to reach the false knight, so start going left and fall all the way down to the bottom of the vertical shaft while trying to avoid the gruzzers. Optimally, you should try to hit the background object at the bottom of the shaft in order to avoid triggering the recovery animation. Now it's time for the Aspen Hunter Gauntlet. Kill the first one normally, but when the other two spawn, the fastest way to defeat them is by deflecting the falling stalactite and impaling both of them. Unfortunately, the timing is pretty tight, so you have to spend some time practicing it. Next we'll be going through the first Golem room. Ideally, you should pogo jump over them in order to avoid waiting for them to go back in the ground. I obviously didn't manage to pull it off, but it's not a major time loss anyway. We are still mostly avoiding enemies. If the positioning permits, it would be a good idea to attack them for some soul. It's much more important to optimize your movement, however, since we won't be able to use our soul offensively for a while yet. Ignore the Husk guard and continue onwards. Same with those bugs, just jump over them. Just a bit more until we reach the boss room. And we'll now face the False Knight. We won't really be defeating him, however. We only need to push him to his first rampaging state and then simply destroy the door of the arena. There we go. As you can see, while he's rampaging, the door gets further damaged. So after a few more hits, we can escape the arena. Now we move on towards the Ancestral Mount in order to collect the Spirit Spell. Just spam through the Snail Shaman's dialogue and collect the spell. This will be the only spell we will be collecting throughout the speedrun. You don't need to talk to the Snail Shaman at this point. Just beeline it towards the Elder Boulder. Since we already have a full soul tank, you generally shouldn't have to worry about attacking enemies while traveling towards him. Even if you do get hit once or twice, I still recommend not wasting time healing up. You could actually squeeze between the boulder and the spikes on the ceiling, but I'm not skilled enough to do so consistently. And we've reached the Elder Boulder. Obviously you have to wait until he uncurls before you use the Vengeful Spirit spell. Basically, if you do it correctly, you only need one boulder spawn in order to get enough soul for the 4th Vengeful Spirit cast. Then just go back down to the Snail Shaman, who will be extremely impressed you've already dealt with the Elder Boulder, and will let you leave the Ancestral Mount. Optimally, you shouldn't waste time using this bench here, but since I've had so many crashes recently, and considering this is not a competitive speedrun attempt, I used it just in case. Now open this shortcut back to Cornifer and go towards Green Path. This time do your best to collect a full soul tank while traveling to the Green Path entrance, as you need it for the Elder Boulder there. A bit of a mistake there, but don't worry about healing right now. Now just spam the 3 casts of Vengeful Spirit and wait for the Boulder spawn. I have no idea why it took so long for him to vomit the Boulder. Quite annoying. Finally. Once we deal with him, we'll move on towards the Hornet Fight Arena. On the way, we'll have the opportunity to do the first 2 actually difficult skips in the speedrun. For the more difficult version of the first skip, we'll need enough soul for 2 Vengeful Spirit casts, so you need to focus on that while traveling. I will be doing the much slower but much easier version of the skip. I've tried the faster version, but my success rate was about 1%, so I can't really show it off even in a non-competitive speedrun. Okay, so here it is. The faster version requires you to jump over the gap and at the highest point cast 2 times the Vengeful Spirit spell towards the right part of the screen. Each time you cast the spell, you get a bit of a pushback. So the 2 casts are enough to get you past the gap and on the ledge we saw Hornet on. The slower strat is to use the squid and lure him to the gap so you can pogo jump off of him. That still is significantly faster than going all the way around, but obviously way slower than the Vengeful Spirit strat. The next skip uses the same Vengeful Spirit strat, so make sure you have enough for 2 more casts. Since there is no alternative strat to get over the gap, I'm not too miffed about having to heal up because of this mistake. This is the gap we could jump over to get over to the ledge on the left with the help of the Vengeful Spirit. Fortunately, it's a much smaller time save than the previous skip, so we will just go around. And we could use this opportunity to gather some soul for the Moss Knight fight. Just go to the top exit of this screen while ignoring all enemies. Quickly unload all of your soul on Vengeful Spirit casts and finish him off with a few snail slashes. And don't forget to collect his geo, since we'll need it in a bit. Then continue on towards the top exit. We need to go through here in order to fight the Vengefly King. Not so we can save the great and powerful Zod though. We simply need a certain amount of geo and the Vengefly King is a perfect opportunity to gather it. The fastest and easiest way to deal with him is to stick to his butt and use all your soul on Vengeful Spirit casts. Then finish him off with a few nail slashes. Keep gathering soul from enemies and continue towards the Hornet fight arena. Preferably gather soul without getting hit. You shouldn't have to worry about healing, since you're not supposed to get hit during the Hornet fight anyway. Again, spam through her dialogue and start the fight. There's no particular clever strats to use against Hornet. Just stick to her, hitting her constantly and use the Vengeful Spirit spell whenever possible. I'm reasonably happy with the fight. Not as fast as someone like Fireborn obviously, but for my skill level, it went pretty much as good as it could. After collecting the Mothwing Cloak, you should quickly quit and restart. This will place you in the Ancestral Mount from where we can continue towards the Mantis village. Again, go back to where Cornifer was and this time take the exit on the bottom right. Now we take the bottom left exit and we're on the path to the Fungal Wastes. Here is the entrance to the Fungal Wastes. Again, just ignore all enemies and drop all the way down. The only real difficulty here is avoiding all the acid pools while being fast. This is mainly an exercise in memorization. There's not too much to talk about for the next couple of screens. Just keep going towards the Mantis village while ignoring all enemies and avoiding all acid pools. We'll be going so fast past Claude we won't even be able to see her. This screen is mainly about optimizing your pogo jumping off of the bouncy plants. There's a very cool strat in the next screen. You can use the Guka projectile in order to use a shortcut we are not supposed to get to without the Mantis Claws. It's on the opposite side of the exit we'll be using now. It saves a significant amount of time, but it's also extremely difficult to pull off. Also, there's an even faster strat that includes using the Vengeful Spirit to kind of hover in the air in specific points. Unfortunately, I can only show you the normal route through the village until we obtain the Mantis Claws. In general, we don't need to attack any of the enemies on our way. We won't be needing any of their geo nor any soul. Assuming you don't get constantly hit like I am. Okay, we're now entering the village. We'll need to hit the lever on the bottom left and then climb to the room containing the Mantis Claws. Just for comparison, if we used the shortcut with the Guka projectile, we would have only needed to go through one screen and then drop directly in front of the lever we just hit. And here are the Mantis Claws. Once we collect them, we will be safe quitting again. Now we'll go towards the Gross Mother Arena. We will be taking the bottom right exit again. And now we'll keep on going to the right for a while. I wish I could say this was an intentional damage boost, but it wasn't. Before we get to the Gross Mother though, we'll make a quick detour in order to unlock the forgotten Crossroads stack station, as we'll need to travel to it in the future. And now it's time to start gathering soul again. It's not strictly necessary, but every little bit helps. There is no special strategy for the Gross Mother. Just keep slashing at her and using the Vengeful Spirit whenever possible. She'll go down soon enough. Just make sure you've enough soul for a Vengeful Spirit before finishing her off. When the Gruzzers spawn, there is a brief period where they're clumped together, and the Vengeful Spirit cast can clear up quite a few of them in one go. Now let's go to Salubra and buy the only charm we will be using during the entire speed run, the Shaman Stone. The reason why we're using it is because this is the fastest way to get a damage increase. Getting the nail upgrades is both much more costly and a significant detour. Compared to that, the Shaman Stone will only waste us a few seconds while increasing the damage of our Vengeful Spirit spell by 33%. Next we'll need to save Sly, and on the way to him we should get hit as much as possible in order to set up for the next skip. The next skip involves the shade you leave when you die. In order to use it, you need to lure an enemy as close as possible to Salubra's hut and get him to kill you. You then respawn at the bench we used near Salubra, which will give us the perfect opportunity to equip the Shaman Stone charm. Next we need to lure our shade near the hut, so we can pogo jump off of him and reach the hidden ledge above the hut. It's quite tricky and not always reliable, but in any case it will save you a ton of time by giving you access to the Blue Lake and from there the resting grounds. There we go. It could have gone a lot faster, but also a lot slower as well. Performed flawlessly, it will take you less than 10 seconds to get to the ledge. Now just dash to the right and get to the exit to resting grounds. Hitting the lever from below is a minor time save since opening the hatch takes a bit of time. Now we need to get to the Dreamer's Monument in order to get trapped in the Dream World and obtain the Dream Nail. Unfortunately, the Dream Nail is required in order to defeat the Dreamers. It also makes the Uumu fight go a bit quicker, but other than that we won't see much use from it. Now it's time to do some light platforming in order to reach the Dream Nail. There's a minor time save you could perform after getting the Dream Nail. If you hit the pause button during the transition, you get limited control of your knight, so you can move him closer to the exit in the Seer's Hut. I'm not 100% sure how it works and if it's actually required to pause the game in order to regain control, but in any case you won't be saving much time, so don't worry too much about it. And now it's time to enter the City of Tears. We'll be using the elevator located to the right of the screen, where we use the lever in order to access the resting grounds. Just ignore the enemies that are on your way. There is an annoying Great Husk sentry that you need a bit of precise movement in order to get over him. I was pretty concerned by the state of my health at this point. A death would have set me back quite a bit, since that would mean I'd have to perform the shade skip and go through the entire Blue Lake again. Thankfully, there were some noble bugs that I used to gather some soul and heal myself. Now let's just go down and grab a Wanderer's Journal. At several points during the run I've been betrayed by my gamepad and used the Vengeful Spirit in the wrong direction. We will have to get at least 2200 geo before we leave this area in order to buy the Lumafly Lantern from Sly and pay for the access to the Crystal Peak and the King Station stack travel. Most of the geo we'll get by mugging the golden noble bug and by getting another Hallownest seal from above the King Station. You don't have to use this bench, but like I said, with the crashes I was getting, it didn't hurt to be safe. Now let's go get that noble bug. And we're still ignoring all enemies. Here is the entrance to where the golden noble bug lives. Since he has quite a bit of health, we will need to use a lot of Vengeful Spirit spells. Okay, and now it's time to defeat our first dreamer, Wurien the Watcher. Before taking the elevator to the Watcher's Spire, let's quickly hit the lever to the left and open the shortcut. We'll be pogo jumping off of a background object in order to get to the ledge leading to the spire. It can be tricky, but with some practice it shouldn't pose too much of a problem. Now before hitting the lever that unlocks the door to the right, I'll be grabbing the bench in this area. The next boss fight, the Watcher Knights, is quite difficult and I'm not good enough to consistently defeat them. Now we'll just go down while killing everyone and use the lever so we can continue. Start off by unloading on the Great Husk Sentry. He's quite tanky, so continue with slashing attacks while gathering enough soul for 3 more spells. Be careful though, as his attacks do 2 masks of damage, so you could easily die in a fight against him. After he dies, the door opens, so you can go hit the switch and continue climbing. Feel free to ignore all enemies while climbing. You don't need any soul when entering the boss fight, since there is an easy way to fill up your soul tank completely. I recommend opening the shortcuts to the left in case you fail to one-shot the Watcher Knights. And now we just keep going up. Don't bother using this elevator, it's much faster to just climb the wall. Now break the ceiling in order to access the hidden room and drop the chandelier on top of one of the Watcher Knights, thus making the fight both easier and faster. Now we can just dream nail any of the Watcher Knights in order to get a full tank of soul. Keep in mind that in any subsequent attempts you won't have to drop the chandelier again. Now the fight is fairly simple, though not easy by any means. You'll mostly be relying on your Vengeful Spirit spell, so try to line both of the knights up when you use it. The main difficulty is in trying not to get cornered or stuck between the knights. As long as you're careful, the fight is very doable, though it can take a while. Use any opportunity like this in order to hit both of them with spells. Unfortunately, there's very few chances to get some healing, so the best strategy would be to not get hit in the first place. Even if you have to be a bit more cautious in fighting them, it may actually take less time compared to being overly aggressive. Like I said, try not to get stuck between them. And that's how my first attempt in this run went. That's why I recommended to always open the shortcut. Okay, let's go back and try it again. This time I'll be able to show you how to top up your soul tank. The plan is the same as the previous fight, just with better execution. I don't think it's a good idea to use the Dream Nail in this particular fight. The knights are fast enough to make using it a risky business. If you need to heal, it's best to put as much distance as possible between you and the knights. Generally, this should give you enough time to pull off a heal. I'm pretty happy with my dodging in this fight. And as I've said, try to hit both of the knights every time you use the Vengeful Spirit. Only one more left. And again, problems with the direction on my gamepad. With only this knight left, healing here was a total waste of time. But I got caught up in the moment. As you can see, simply using the 2 Vengeful Spirit casts would have already ended the fight. Now we'll keep climbing until we reach the Dreamer. I messed up with the order of events here. We do need to get this chest and Hollow Nest seal, but we're supposed to collect them after killing the Dreamer. Still, since I've went there anyway, I should have collected them. Brain freeze, I guess. And again, we should just climb the wall since the elevator ride is lower. Now just Dream Nail the Dreamer and kill him. And that's one Dreamer down. Or, in other words, we're about halfway through the run. Now, the proper way to do this part is to code the elevator so it frees up room at the bottom we could get through, and then just drop down the elevator shaft. Obviously, I didn't do that and wasted quite a lot of time. Now let's go back to the chest and the Hollow Nest seal. And now we have enough geo to last us through the end of the run. Next we need to go to Relic Seeker Lamb so we can sell the relics we've collected. We will now be opening the shortcuts to the west side of the City of Tears, above Lamb's shop. Don't worry about the Vengeflies following you. The elevator we are going to go will crush them. Unfortunately, Lamb is currently not in his shop, so we need to go to the city fountain and talk with him. After that, we'll just head back to his shop again, to see him already there. Teleportation for the win. By the way, we're never going to visit the Royal Waterways, so we won't be needing any of the simple keys.
Morrison Gian, Velmi Arpid. Kachael, Liasok, Velmi Arpid. Opal, Velmi Arpid.
And with that, we are done worrying about Geo. Now let's go open the King Station and travel to Dirt Mount. As usual, you could simply ignore all the enemies on your way. Just a bit more until the station. The only thing we need to do in Dirt Mount is to go to Sly and buy the Lumafly Lantern. It is required in order to activate the switch that opens the access to Crystal Peak from the Forgotten Crossroads. Now we'll use the stack again and travel to the Forgotten Crossroads station. Or should I say the Infected Crossroads station. Since we've defeated our first Dreamer, the area has now become the Infected Crossroads. Which unfortunately means we'll have to deal with the furious Vengeflies while we're here. Fortunately, this is pretty much the only time we'll be meeting them. And here is the tow machine you need to use in order to open the passage to Crystal Peak. Unfortunately, even if you can navigate through the dark without the Lumafly Lantern, you can't activate this machine. Now all we need to do here is go straight to the Crystal Heart in order to obtain our Super Dash ability. And this will be the last ability we'll need in order to complete the speedrun. We won't be needing Isthmus Tears or the Monarch Wings. The path towards the Crystal Heart is pretty straightforward. Just try to dodge the enemies as much as possible without losing too much time. In other words, don't do what I just did. Yeah, I had an inexplicable brain freeze here. Completely forgot where I was supposed to be going. This is why I spent a bit of time here in order to gather some soul and heal myself. And now we're continuing to the right. Here we just drop all the way down and to the right. At this point I was starting to get a bit tired, so the amount of mistakes I was making was piling up. Thankfully we're almost done with the Crystal Peak. There's only a bit of intermediate platforming left before we get the Super Dash. Okay, we are done with the platforming, so we only need to collect the Crystal Heart now. And next we will be safe quitting in order to teleport to Dirt Mount. Now that we have all the movement abilities we need, it's time to go back to the infected Crossroads and travel to Fog Canyon in order to confront the next Dreamer. As I said, I was getting a bit tired by this point, so I was trying to be a bit more cautious, which is why I wasted a bit of time here to heal up. Now let's go left and see how we're going to manage to get to the next Dreamer without this Masteer. Let's first kill the Aspen Mother. Now there's a very small ledge on the large platform to the left where you can stick to the wall with Super Dash and go above the acid pool and all the way through a hidden passage on the right. It is quite tricky to get the timing right, but fortunately each attempt won't set you back too much. Also, even if you manage to pull off the Super Dash, the next part is also a bit tricky, as you have very little time in order to jump away from the acid pool. Once we manage to cross the pool though, we'll be entering the Fog Canyon. It took me quite a bit more tries than I would have liked to, which is why I'm gathering up some soul to heal up. Now we'll be going down and to the left, with the ultimate goal being the Teacher's Archive. And of course this is the wrong way. We'll need to drop down a bit more. Here we go. We can do a Super Dash here, which will save a bit of time at the expense of one mask of damage. And just like that, we're at the Teacher's Archive. Again, a Super Dash here, and let's quickly grab the bench here, just in case. We'll then drop down and go straight to the Umu boss fight. Try to kill all the small jellyfish in order to fill up your soul tank. The Vengeful Spirit will be our main weapon against Umu. The main way to speed up this fight is to learn when you can Dream Nail the boss, as even while he's invulnerable, you still can use the Dream Nail to gather soul. He's using a very predictable pattern in going towards you before stopping and using one of his 2 attacks. If you learn the distance he travels towards you and position yourself properly, you can activate your Dream Nail and hit him when he gets close enough to you. So the best way to maximize your damage and limit the amount of cycles is by using the Dream Nail while he's invulnerable and using Vengeful Spirits after hit by Coral. And again, betrayed by my gamepad. It takes quite a bit of practice in order to be able to properly judge the distance you need to hit Umu. No idea how I managed to avoid this attack. And this was a properly executed Dream Nail. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Just a couple more cycles and we're done. Almost close enough. Unfortunately, I was too late on this. And finally, we're done with probably the most annoying boss in the game. Just for comparison's sake, a top speedrunner can 2-cycle Umu in these conditions. Now, in order to get to the tank where the Dreamer is floating, we'll need to once again use Super Dash to cross an acid pool. All that's left is to climb the tank and wait for Quirrell to lift the seal. Since we have it now, I should have used the Super Dash to get to the Dreamer and save a couple seconds. All that's left now is the final Dreamer. And while during casual play the Deep Nest is pure hell, in a speedrun setting it's really not that bad. First things first though, let's go back outside the teacher's archive. I'll be using the bench again, purely because I'm afraid of any crashes. During a proper speedrun though, you shouldn't be using this bench at all. Now let's super dash to the left and open the passage. This will place us near Queen's Station as well as the entrance to the Queen's Gardens. Now we super dash through the stack station and go all the way to the Fungal Wastes. Now we will head through the Fungal Wastes until we reach the passage connecting the Fungal Wastes to Queen's Gardens and the Deep Nest. Obviously our goal right now is to reach the Deep Nest. Use the super dash here and you end up at a fake wall that leads to the passage I mentioned. Again, I was getting a little bit too trigger happy with the super dash and missed the hole leading to the Deep Nest. Twice. And finally we're getting somewhere. The first checkpoint in our journey through Deep Nest is the onsen. Like I said, once you're familiar with the route, going through Deep Nest is not that bad. There aren't that many enemies nor environmental hazards. And there's our old buddy, Nosk. I keep pressing the pause button by mistake for some reason. And this long fall will land us directly in the onsen. Heal and stock upon soul and then continue left towards the distant village. We'll have to do some climbing first before continuing left. As usual, if you can, it's better to skip fighting the enemies. This part is trickier than it looks. I've had quite some problems with the spikes in previous runs. And we're nearly there. Just a couple more screens before we are at the distant village. After we cross the gap, it's a straight shot to the left. Well, perhaps not that straight. There we go. And this is the last screen before the village. This part is a bit annoying because of the Deep Hunter. It might be a good idea to first kill him, especially if you're not super confident in your movement. And we can just super dash from here. Next we will only need to get to the beast's den and get ourselves caught. The main problem in the beast's den are the stalking devout. There are two of them you need to defeat. Don't forget that in order to not get countered, you must wait until he opens his mask before hitting him. That way you can hit him twice before having to dash away from his claws. The fastest way to defeat them is by having a full soul tank and using all 3 of your Vengeful Spirit casts, which makes soul management while going through the beast's den quite important. Finally done with the first one. The next one we will encounter we can jump over, and we need to have a full soul tank by the time we reach the third one. Otherwise, navigating the den is pretty straightforward. I had some difficulties with this Deep Hunter. The problem was that there was very little space to squeeze through, and those spikes below the Deep Hunter. Finally, I whittled him down. This Talking Devout we can't jump over, so do just that. This one, however, we have to kill. Just use your 3 casts of Vengeful Spirits and finish him off with a few slashes and another cast. And we're at our final Dreamer. Let's Dream Nail her and remove the last seal. Great! Now all that's left is to leave the beast's den and go to the stack station in the distant village and return to Dirt Mount. This is the shortest route to the Temple of the Black Egg, where we'll confront the Hollow Knight and the end of this speedrun. Unfortunately, I misclicked here and lost several seconds. Okay, now that we've gotten off at the correct station, let's head outside and go down the well again. It's a good idea to super dash from the wall over here, because this will bring us straight to the entrance of the temple. You don't have to super dash here, it's just a short walk. And now we can see what's inside the black egg. Here we have to super dash since it's a long way off. There's also a bench we'll be passing by, but there's no reason to use it. Now all we have to do is destroy these chains in order to start the final boss fight. The Hollow Knight is the same fight as the one in the other endings, except you won't have Hornet enter the fight. The strategy here is to stick to him as much as possible so you can slash him and get her soul, which you then use for spellcasts. The first phase is quite simple: avoid his triple slash and lunge attacks and keep on slashing him. You can easily die in this fight, so unless you're very good, and if you're watching this guide you probably aren't, then a more cautious and conservative fighting style is preferable. Once the second phase starts, the Hollow Knight will start using 2 more attacks. The best way to deal with the barrage is to jump over him and start wailing at him from behind. Since we don't have the Shadow Dash, it's very difficult to get through those blobs, and besides, you have plenty of time to just jump over him. And this is his second new attack. Unlike the pure vessel version of this attack, it's not particularly difficult to position yourself correctly and keep slashing him while he's doing this move. In the third phase he gets 2 new attacks and, well, I wouldn't call that an attack, but sometimes he starts impaling the corruption in his chest with his nail. Since all damage he takes during this time is reduced to 1, it's a good opportunity to heal up if you need to. His first new actual attack is a Marmo cosplay, where he starts bouncing at you. It's not particularly difficult to avoid. And his final attack is similar to the one Grim uses, where he's suspended in air and starts spewing blobs everywhere. This is a good opportunity to deal a lot of damage if you can position yourself properly. In the final phase, his only moves are the self-stabbing one and the failed attempt at a triple slash. Once you get him to this point, it's over. He only has a little bit of health left, so quickly finish him off. Okay, I lied. He can also use the bounce attack. And we're done! The timer stops just before the final cinematic starts. And with this we've rounded up all the possible endings as well as the 2 speedrun achievements. Hey guys! As you can see, there is not a huge skill requirement in order to start speedrunning Hollow Knight. Although that can also be said about pretty much any game. In any case, I really hope you give this a try and see if this is something you might enjoy. It's a very different way of experiencing the game. As always, if you've enjoyed it, please press the like button, and if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. This will really help me to provide better content for you guys. Thank you for spending your time with me and hope to see you again next time. Until then, have a good one.